Hi there and welcome to the Liquidator, the strictly 100% unofficial fan-powered West Bromwich Albion podcast with me, Adrian Goldberg, and Chris Lepkowski. This time our summer special, reflecting on a surprisingly busy June. We've just seen the Baggies sign 4 new players and sell Josh Griffiths to Stoke with a hint that Alex Mowat might be on his way too. James Morrison's backroom staff have been appointed, signs of real positive action behind the scenes. As I commented on social media the other day, there seems like real grounds for optimism, at least until the football starts. Talking of which, the fixtures are out, though Sky and West Midlands Police still have to have their say. I'm sure every Baggies fan relishing the return of the Black Country Derby. And Shilen Patel writes an open letter to supporters apologising for our worst season for a quarter of a century. Welcome, Chris. How are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, good, thank you. Enjoying the football, the World Cup.
Yeah, well, apart from when England play. It doesn't seem to matter who's in charge, is it? There's something painful about watching England at times, even though they are in the knockout stages. So fingers crossed, let's see how they go. Talking about the Albion, I think that Shilen Patel is a good place to start because it kind of his open letter, which was a long one, my 11-year-old daughter said she didn't read to the bottom, which I quite understand, but kind of amounted to a reset for the guy who was effectively our owner, our chairman. He apologised for the ups and downs of last season. He said, I don't think he needed to say this actually, that he didn't, he could never feel the passion that Albion supporters feel for those who've been here for generations and all that sort of stuff. But I think it was an attempt, wasn't it, to kind of draw a line, particularly under the era when Andrew Nestor was our director of football. And it seems clear to me that there's been a much greater urgency, a much greater fleet-footedness about Albion's transfer activity. And the sense that behind the scenes, and I don't know whether this is being driven by James Morrison. I don't know whether it's being driven by our new head of data, Dominic Price. I'm not 100% sure where it's coming from, but a real sense of purpose in terms of our recruitment, who we're getting, the kinds of players that we're bringing in, and just think a sense that, actually Albion do seem to know what they're about at the moment, only to be confounded when the matches start.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few layers really to that. Shilen Patel's mea culpa, if you like, was it was surprising. I wasn't expecting to see that thing. It kind of feels like it probably should have come out a few weeks ago to draw a line under the previous season. But that's fine. It's come out now, and it gives a real sense of purpose as to what we're going to be doing or what the club are going to be doing in the future. I think it's fair enough, if he feels strongly enough to want to apologise or to set the record straight as to what didn't quite work and what they wanted to do and to just explain himself, that's fine. I think regarding the players, I think really you have to look at the players we've brought in, and the players we've brought in are generally footballers who perhaps didn't or weren't courting attention from other clubs. They were fairly straightforward deals, to initiate and to complete. There weren't a string of clubs in for any of the players. It was us and the selling club, and we were able to sort that out quickly. And I think that's really a big reason why those deals were completed as quickly as they were. There was no bidding war. There was no player being held on for dear life until the end of August because his selling club hadn't brought in his replacement, that kind of thing, which is inevitably what you're going to get in a transfer window most of the time. The players you want don't always come when you want. They come when the players and when the selling club are willing to sell them. So I think it's pleasing that we've brought in a few for the start of pre-season. I think there's a real sense of optimism, and the notion that James Morrison has brought in, is it 3 new members of staff, McMahon, Strachan, Gavin Strachan.
Yeah, well, Matt Gill has been confirmed.
Matt Gill, yeah. So I think
yeah,
that's a really big statement that the club are investing in. I hate to use the word project because it gets used and bandied around, but that's what it is. You know, James Morrison, the final however many games he was manager of the team last season were really a chance for him to underline and showcase his credentials. He did that and more, and nobody begrudges him being manager. You know, it was the most natural appointment really that we could make, and the notion that we have allowed him to bring in 2 new coaches, and obviously Gills stayed on when there was speculation he might join Russell Martin at the sinking ship over in the East Midlands. I think that's a real statement that Albion are giving their full conviction to James Morrison and the future under James Morrison.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the signings that we've made, perhaps not being players who other clubs necessarily were in for. I mean, I think that perhaps undersells it a little bit.
It's not a criticism. It's not a criticism of the players. There are some deals that are easier to do. You know, every single transfer deal transaction will have its own unique facets. You can never compare one player to another. There are so many variables that go into a pursuit of a player: circumstances, salary, insurance, agent fees, fees to the selling club and the structure. So no 2 deals will ever be the same. But I think it's pleasing that the club have been able to have the wherewithal to get those deals done. And I think it is made easier by the fact that Falkirk obviously very willing to bring in their record transfer fee. The goalkeeper Ingram came in from having been third choice or second choice at Oxford. So there wasn't probably a huge amount of resistance there from them to move him on. So I think there were some deals that are easier to do than others. And there are, we will probably bring in loan players this season. I suspect those loan players might not arrive till August, maybe late in August. There will be other players that perhaps have more experience, have a greater pedigree because they're older or more experienced. We might have to wait for those players. So, clubs get criticised sometimes for leaving things until it's too late or until it is fairly late in a transfer window. But actually, that's where we are at the moment. We're not a club who have the status to really be dominant in a transfer market. We do have to wait for our say in the pecking order.
Well, no, but that's what I'm kind of slightly pushing back on you on that. I think the signings that we've made, certainly 2 of the 3, would have been signings that other clubs might have made. And I think we've done very smart business by getting in there ahead of the game. So if you look at Barney Stewart, I mean, we paid a record fee. It's like 1.4 million, something like that.
It's a record for Falkirk, isn't it?
A record for Falkirk, but his record for Falkirk last season, played 38, scored 12, 4 assists. So that tells you he knows his way to goal, and he's a young player, so there's room for improvement. Before that, he was at Dunfermline. He scored 8 in 12, so it's quite a swift rise for him. And the Championship will represent a step up. Certainly, if Albion are looking to battle away at the top end, I think that is comparable, perhaps, to the Scottish Premier League. Jimmy J. Carter scored, I think, 14 for Peterborough and had 3 assists across the season. Not out of this world, but pretty decent for a player playing his first full season in League One. And the transfer fee there, reported to be 4 million quid with a sell-on clause, tells you that is a serious sign. I mean, Chelsea's model, we obviously signed him from Chelsea, not from Peterborough. He'd been on loan at Peterborough. Chelsea's model is to kind of pile them high and sell them expensive. And 4 million quid is a pretty hefty outlay for Albion. So I think those 2 are players that I would hope that would be looking to feature really in the first team from the start of the season. I think that we're not wealthy enough to kind of put players store them in the cupboard for a rainy day, are we? They have to kind of hit the ground running. But both have got real potential, exactly the kind of profile of signing that we've discussed previously that Albion should be looking at. Carter Pinnington from Liverpool. I suspect that our new head of digital stuff, tactical scouting, whatever you call it, data analyst Dominic Price, who had a connection with Liverpool, may be instrumental in that.
He's going into the 21s, though, isn't he?
Yeah. But he comes exactly. Yeah. So he is one that we are kind of putting aside, and I think we've got him on a very good deal, but which Liverpool will get a sell on if we make something of him. But again, just kind of smart deals. I think, and the other clubs will be looking at and thinking, blimey, West Brom got their act together there. They've acted ahead of the pack, and that's why I'm impressed. That's why I think there's a kind of a level of football intelligence that wasn't evident in Andrew Nestor's time, and so I'm not sure he's driving that at the club. Maybe it is James Morrison, but that is really, really positive. We got Matt Gill as number 2. You got Tony McMahon, who's known James Morrison from his FA Youth Cup winning days at Middlesbrough. McMahon was the captain of that team when Mozza won the FA Youth Cup with Borough, and Gavin Strachan, who he knows from the Scotland setup. So I think from that point of view, it's all pretty positive. Just wanted to say one other thing relating to Shilen Patel's comments. He did make the point, and we've made it before, that although Andrew Nestor came in for a lot of criticism for his data-driven model, for data analysis of players and the kind of the figures ruling over common sense in some cases with Andrew Nestor's signing, Shilen Patel did push back on that a bit and say, didn't he, that look, any modern scouting system is going to use analytics, it's going to use data. And we've said that as well. You can't ignore data and analytics when clubs like Brighton and Brentford have established themselves in the top half of the Premier League, punched above their weight on the back of data and analytics. But as we've said before, that is only part of the story. You've got to do your scouting on the player, on the individual as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important. The use of data has never been a problem, really. I think it's very important in a modern football environment to make sure that you are using as many filters as possible to de-risk any signing. You need to be able to see what a player is capable of. I think the problem we've had in the past is that we haven't necessarily married that up with the human aspects of players coming in. The data can tell you so much, and the data is important, but so are the visual things, the things that only your eyes can tell you, only your instinct, only a manager's feel for a player can tell you. So I think the data-driven, whether it's the recruitment side, the scouting of players, is really important, and it has to be used as a tool. But as a tool, it should never really be the exclusive means by which you bring in a player. There has to be a marriage there between common sense, between a manager's instinct or coach's instinct, the ability to pick out the human side, and what data won't tell you is how a player will adjust, maybe in a new country, to a new club, to a new environment. Is he shy? Is he confident? Does he have maybe mental health issues? All of these things that data won't necessarily tell you. The human side of a person, that is still something that needs to be factored in when you're doing recruitment. But data, of course, it's, you'd be absolutely foolish to go down a route of recruitment without looking at the clubs that do it very well. Brighton, Brentford, we've seen Heart of Midlothian adopt a similar system up there with the Tony Bloom, and it almost won them the Scottish League. It's no secret that that's the way forward, and that's the way that you have to shape a recruitment department. I think the problem we've had in the past is that we haven't always used the data available to us alongside some of the more human elements of recruitment and scouting, and that's maybe caught us out a little bit in the past. And I think lessons will be learned. I think that's important. The person driving a lot of that last year no longer here, and there was criticism of him by previous managers and other people. So I think it's important that, you know, we look at it that not all data is bad data. Data is important.
No. Well, yeah. Data is only as good as the interpretation you place on it, isn't
Absolutely. Data's important. Yeah.
It's like if you get a house survey. You know, the house survey will tell you certain things, won't it? But you know, it's for you to interpret, or for the surveyor to let you know. Well, yeah, you know, is that subsidence going to bring your house toppling down, or is it what you get with every 100-year-old house? You know, it's weighing those fine decisions, isn't it, that makes the difference. And
then you go to look at the house, you go to view the house, and the M6 is literally right next to it. Yeah, the survey hasn't told you that, but your eyes have told you that.
So, I think I might be sacking the surveyor on that one. It always amazes me, by the way, those houses in Roebuck Street in West Brom, where the Vine pub is. It still astonishes me. Even now, if you walk to the bottom of Roebuck Street, you see a row of really nice looking houses. And then the end house, you come out your front door, you look up, and you've got the elevated section of the M5 going to the M6. How did that ever get planning permission? It's just by the by, but incredible to think, you know. And
Roebuck, is it Roebuck Street? The one, where the
it's
like a landing. It's like a landing strip anyway. That road, I've never seen such a wide road before. It's absolutely incredible.
Maybe West Bromwich International Airport is being planned without us knowing it. Who knows? But just a couple of other things just to mention in passing as well. We're now in the age, in relation to this, we're now in the age of squad cost ratios, which means that the income you generate as a football club, whether through signings, through your match day operations, through your commercial operations, is the benchmark. That's where you start from, and you can spend 70% of that. So the more money you bring in, the more money you're allowed to spend. Owners like Shilen Patel will be allowed to dip into their pockets to the tune of 10 million quid on top of that each season. But that's it, 10 million quid per season. So essentially, the more money you can earn as a football club, the more money you can spend. And I just thought it was really interesting that they also announced two names that won't excite the fans, but I think whose job is going to be really important in this context going forward. A new chief business officer, a guy called Sam Jeffrey, and Thomas Chadwick, who I know has been around the club for a while, who's going to be trying to improve the match day experience and increase revenue there, because Albion will need to increase their revenue if you want to compete with the likes of Birmingham City.
And new PA
going forward.
New PA system as well.
New PA system. But I did notice that Shilen, it's strange, isn't it, how it doesn't matter which continent our owners come from, we get owners who say we will continue to emphasize a prudent approach. Get your checkbook out, man. I'm joking. You can't do that anymore. And
I did have a message. I did have a reply to someone on X suggesting that statement was 83% AI or 93% AI. So if that's true, the data-driven process and the AI process is working very well. Yeah.
What, Sheilen's statement, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't know about that. It seemed heartfelt to me.
It did. It did. I am joking, of course.
Yeah. And he, everything that Shilen Patel does, and I think this is one of the things. Clearly, relationships were strained last season when Albion was struggling so badly, and when the confidence that he placed in Andrew Nestor was so misplaced. But underneath it all, I think Albion fans recognise that Shilen Patel is fundamentally a decent human being, and that he has an air of humility about him. And I think that serves him very well. And I just think, I was telling my daughter kind of slightly struggled to believe that there was an era when West Bromwich Albion broke the British transfer record when we signed David Mills, of course, for £516,000. And although Mills was a cracking footballer, it never worked out for him at the Hawthorns. And I would say almost to a player, every time Albion have spent big, it hasn't worked. So continuing that prudent approach, actually, I think will chime with most Albion fans. No problem with that. We don't want to be splashing the cash and generating huge headlines. We just want sensible recruitment and a sense of a club.
Do you know there's a lot to be said also? Sorry to interrupt. There's a lot to be said for bringing in players that you really have to do a bit of research about. I quite like that. It feels a little bit like something we've not had for a long, long time. You know, who is this guy?
No, I agree 100%. And that to me tells you either that we've gone completely left field, signed, I don't know, Gianluca Frabotta or Uros Rakic, or that we've actually known, you know, we've had eyes on these players and we know what we're getting. And I'm tempted to believe, because James Morrison is there, it feels like we've got real football people in charge of the club now on the playing side. But actually, we've had our eyes on these players and we know what we're getting. That kind of inspires me, really. Josh Griffiths, though, has gone to Stoke City. He goes with our best wishes. We've signed Matt Ingram, presumably as a backup keeper. In a way, I'm sorry to see Josh Griffiths go, but he clearly wasn't going to get regular games, I think, under Morrison. I think he showed his fragility at times last season. He's got to play, and it's one of those signings where you kind of wish a player well. You kind of sense that he's got more to come in his career. He's a good goalkeeper, but he just needs to be playing matches, and we can't afford to give him those matches at the moment.
Yeah, and really, he had 1 year left on his current deal, so it was the only time we could have made any money on him was at this point. So 600,000 will be, you know, people will be sniffy about that, thinking it's a bad deal, but actually, for a player who would be walking away next summer and be pretty much worthless in January, there's a deal there to be done, and I suspect there might be add-ons in the outgoing deal that might benefit us in the future. I feel a bit sorry for Josh Griffiths. I mean, it seems only about 2-3 years ago we were seeing his name linked with clubs of pedigree in the Premier League, you know, who were willing to take a chance on him. And I know he had a poor run last season, and I think he was dropped unfairly. I know some people disagree with that. I think the brutal nature of him being dropped was particularly harsh, and I think it impacted on him. When he returned, he wasn't the same confident player. I think the persistent changing of personnel and defence from game to game didn't help him. I've spoken about this before. There is such an important need for goalkeepers, defenders, but especially to have that relationship, that synergy between them. You know, we saw in Max O'Leary's first game when he came in. I made that very point, and I was concerned, and he made a mistake because he wasn't quite in tune with the defence. And I think Griffiths suffered with that. I think he suffered with a loss of confidence. I think he was a little bit unfairly dropped when he was, and it really impacted on him. And I wish him all the best. You know, he's clearly it's a big move for him. I think it's a good move for him, you know, to go to to Stoke City. So good luck to him.
No, good luck to him. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a good goalkeeper, and it would not amaze me if he crops up playing in the Premier League in a few years' time. But he's got some development to go, and I don't think he'd have got that development at the Hawthorns. We've got new contract extensions for Callum Styles and Usman Diakite, both of which I welcome, both good players, both players who contribute to the club. Would it amaze me if Alex Mowat, as rumoured, went to Derby County? No, it wouldn't, because John Eustace is a known admirer of Alex Mowat. I've seen a figure quoted of 1.3 million, which for a player of his age, I'd take that, thank you. But it wouldn't amaze me if somebody came in with an offer for Isaac Price and we sold him. I think that's, you know, we've got to be realistic. We've done good business so far by the look of it in the transfer market, but none of our players, and not least because of the squad cost ratio issue, none of our players is above a decent bid being made for him.
I think there are two players I feel may find themselves leaving because of circumstances. I think Mowat is one, because I feel that at 31, I'm not sure. He's never really been the most mobile midfielder. I think if we play the way we have been with the four in midfield, I'm not sure there's a place for him from the start. I don't think he'll be necessarily starting many matches because he wasn't assigned a role under Morrison's team in Morrison's team last season. With several months on, I'm not sure he will be again this season. So I can see why he might possibly be moved on. I don't think there's a place for him in this starting 11. The other player, slightly different reasons, Mikey Johnston. And the reason I mention him is because of I think the way we play and the midfield, the way it's set up, it's not really, it's not a very welcoming midfield for orthodox wingers. And I think Mikey Johnston is that. He's a very conventional wide player who tends to perhaps do his best work very close to the touchline. And yes. I'm not sure that's going to be the way we play. Now, again, I think a player like Johnston, who's a great footballer, in my view, he's more likely to have a place where he comes on, an impact player. I'm not convinced he will want that kind of role. I think he will want to be playing regularly. And at the moment, if we're to assume we play the way we did last year, I'm not convinced there's necessarily a place for him in that team.
I agree with you. I think under Morrison, we've tended to play quite narrow, and that doesn't really suit Johnston's game. And although I think he is a player who is willing to work and get up and down, his strengths are going past players, taking them on the outside. And I agree with you from that point of view. He could go, but I also think Price could be vulnerable as well, in that he's just a player who is coveted. He had a pretty in and out time last season, but he started well and he finished well. And I think he's a player who might catch the eye of one or two other clubs. But yeah, we can only wait and see. But the reality is that we probably will, as well as bringing more players in, and Shilen Patel has hinted at that, we will be moving more players on and getting players. But again, that sign of getting our firm footing as a club in there by retaining Callum Stiles for a longer period, retaining Usman Diakite for a longer period, who I think for me offers far more as a central midfielder than Alex Mowat. Signs of a club that's actually getting its act together. Come on, then, let's talk about the game. Go on.
Can I just say one of the mistakes we did make? I don't think Patel addressed this. We allowed too many players to come to the end of their contract at once, and I think that's a mistake. And I think by extending the contracts of Stiles and Diakite, we're rewarding their progress, but we're also effectively putting a greater value on them. So should Diakite have a fantastic season, and somebody in the Premier League wants to have a try and a sniff, then they're going to have to pay more for him. So
Patel did address that. He said, as of the release of the letter, we'll only have 2 senior players whose contracts expire next summer. Yeah. And he says, as he points out, that's a vast difference from the churn required in this and prior summers. Exactly. And you're then in a position as the club that holds those registrations, if you're in a financially strong position, you can say, no, we're not going to accept the fee that you offer. Whereas at the moment, if you get a decent fee offered for any player, if they're within a couple of years of the contract expiring, common sense says you've got to take it. Onto the fixtures then, Chris. So the lips were licked. We got the fixtures out, and the Black Country Derby is back. Wolves away.
I've been promoted. I missed that. Black Country Derby. Sorry, that's a bugbear of mine. Apologies.
Yeah. So, Saturday the 19th of October, and then
it's not going to be Saturday the 19th, is it?
Of course it's not. Well, you've got Sky and West Midlands Police who'll both dip their oar in. And the 20th of the Feb is the home game. Other games I'm looking forward to, always like the derby against Blues as well. It doesn't have the same edge or aggravation, but it's still pretty hard fought against Blues. Saturday the 10th of October, trip to St Andrews in February. I'm looking forward to, though, a trip to the London Stadium. I went to it not for the Olympics, but for the Paralympics in 2012. When it was called the Olympic Stadium. Obviously, it's been refashioned now for football, and we've got the delight of West Ham's decline to gloat over. So a trip to West Ham. on October the 31st. I mean, so all these fixtures at the moment, because Sky hasn't yet announced its picks, are subject to change, and 12:30 messing about, and Sundays and Fridays and all that. But those were some of the games I was looking forward to. Lincoln, trip to Lincoln on Boxing Day, and then they've stopped doing derbies around this time of the year. But we've got Stoke on New Year's Day as well. It strikes me, people have said it's quite a tough opening stretch. Yeah, maybe, but we're going to be a good side. Burnley, the first home game. Bolton at home to finish. You'd fancy your chances of beating Bolton on the last day if you needed a win to clinch the title, wouldn't you, Chris?
I think the Wolves watch is interesting. If I recall correctly, I think it's the same weekend of the South Wales derby. No, not South Wales. Sorry, the Millwall
West Ham.
West Ham derby. So I can.
I think I said the 19th of October. It's 19th of September. We're playing Wolves. Yeah, you really. Yeah, so that'll be another one. All police leave cancelled.
Yeah, but it just has all the hallmarks of being a Sky Sports special Sunday derby day.
Extravaganza, won't it? Yeah. But I mean, those matches will surely both kick off. I'd say like 11 o'clock or something, won't they? Because as we saw from the last time we played Wolves, I mean, it was a weird one, wasn't it? Because the game was held up for about 40 minutes, and actually, it was one guy in the Halfords, effectively, who had a ticket in a part of the ground where Wolves supporters weren't supposed to be, but that then provoked, a kind of pitch invasion and all that sort of stuff. So I think West Midlands Police will be arguing for an 11 o'clock Sunday, as I'm sure the police in London will be, maybe even earlier, maybe an 8 a.m. kick-off.
Who knows? I think Lincoln's the one that's probably caught the eye for many people on Boxing Day. I don't think we've played there for many, many, many years. Trying to think when we might have been in the same.
I think we might have played an auto windscreen game there in about 1991.
Rings a bell, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think the last league game there was 1948, I believe.
Wow.
But I do think we played them in a. Yeah,
was they not in when we were in Division 3? Would they not have been in a division then? In 91, 92, 92, 93?
I don't think so. Think so. We've played them in the FA Cup, and we played them in the Auto Glass Trophy.
Okay.
But I don't think we've played them in the league since 1948.
Right. Okay. So, there you go. West Ham again. I think that's going to be one that. I mean, it would have been West Ham or Tottenham, wouldn't it? And Tottenham stayed up. But my only visit was to West Ham, to the Londoner Stadium, was to interview one of the coaches there, a guy called Enzo Maresca, for a book.
Ooh,
whatever happened to him? He's disappeared off the radar.
Indeed. Very good. Oh, just one other word, Chris. Just a word to say, well done to the Baggies blind team.
Yeah.
Shilen Patel in his statement was very keen to praise the foundation, as well he might, because the foundation does do amazing work. And I think because of the points deduction that we suffered, which was because of issues relating to accountancy, which involved the foundation, obviously he was keen to say it's nothing to do with the foundation. It's not their fault that we ended up in that situation with the points deduction, which we can now all put behind us. But Albion's Blind FC beat the Royal National College for the Blind 5-2. So well done to Issa Amjid, who earned man of the match, scored a couple of goals as well in a 5-2 victory. So they won the Disability FA Cup final. So well done to Baggy's blind team. Is that it? Any other business?
Don't think so. No trivia question this week, mainly because I haven't thought of one yet.
No, and just to encourage you to become a member of the Albion Independent Supporters Trust, look online for that. They've got a feed on X. They've got other social medias out there. I've paid my money. I've not had a membership card yet, but I think they've got an extraordinary general meeting I believe, on July the 8th, at which kind of a board will be elected to the Independent Supporters Trust. But having a strong independent supporters voice for Baggy supporters, democratically accountable, I think is a hugely important thing. So look them up if you think that's, if you agree with me on that. The Albion Independent Supporters Trust. They're on Facebook, they're on X and other socials as well. So do that. So barring any glitches, and you never know what happens in the world of Albion, we'll be back on the eve of the season. And we've got a League Cup game, haven't we, against Rotherham on August the 8th. That's a little novel introduction, isn't it? Playing the League Cup games on the 6th.
That's great. On that
Really
note,
good.
by the way, I think that's such a good idea to devote a weekend. And I'd like to see, actually, I think the League Cup, to give it more prominence, should be a competition that is done and dusted in the first half of the year. I think they used to do that in Scotland with the League Cup, maybe still do. I'm thinking back to the Skull Cup days. You know, the League Cup in Scotland would be done and dusted by about November, December. I think they should consider that with a League Cup. There probably aren't enough midweek slots available to do that, but I think it would certainly give a bit of impetus to the competition, and it's good to have the weekend.
Yeah, and Baggy's got some friendlies away at rarely visited grounds, away at Shrewsbury, at the Crude or Crowd Meadow, away at Peterborough, and one in Albufeira in Portugal as well. So I don't know if I can swing that one, but it would be a nice away day.
It's a good place to go, trust me. It's a great place.
Anyway, good to speak to you, Chris. We'll stay on top of it and be in touch. Don't forget as well to follow the Liquidator on Substack, where I post those kind of musings, fan culture stuff that's relevant to Albion. If you do want to contribute to the Liquidator Substack, with anything you want to write, by all means get in touch. Email goldbergradio@gmail.com. And for those of you who have taken the time to spend a few quid supporting the Liquidator, I've got some very big news coming soon. I can say no more. See you soon, Chris. Cheers now. Have a great summer.
Cheers. You too.